All right, everyone. So we have the patch 1.1.1 officially added on the Blizzard site here. We have the real patch notes because they said that they're going to be potentially changing some of these things. So we'll have to go ahead and see what the exact numbers are. But we can expect Sorcerer, Barbarian, and honestly all classes being buffed. Although some classes like the Rogue and the Druid aren't super impactful. Same with the sorcerer, honestly, overall, and the density, as well as some things to do with XP and a few other things. So, first off, let's dive into this. We have effectiveness of sorcerer and barbs. They're looking to improve late game survivability, Paragon board improvements, class mechanics to move away from the Kiss Curse effects. This is where the player gains power but loses power somewhere else. I like this. Glass cannon is the first thing that comes to mind. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, you gotta run glass cannon because that's the only way you do damage, but also you get one shot, period. Barbarians speed up the flow of combat in the early game and add late game excitement. I think this is a really, really cool idea, and based on what we saw, this doesn't do any of that. uh, I'm sorry to say, but it doesn't look like the changes really matter a whole lot. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but diving in here, going through, basically all of these things are things that we saw previously and I had already gone over. A little bit of a TLDR here on the Barbarian changes, a lot of their Fury generation and damage for various different core skills and basic skills have been increased. They also increased some of the passives, notably the Gushing Wounds. I think that's probably the most interesting, along with the Walking Arsenal, because Walking Arsenal is a popular option. Heck, even the Unconstrained Berserking damage bonus increase is pretty good as well. So I think the passive bonuses are the biggest ones. After that, the aspect of Unrelenting Fury gets refunded on bosses. That's pretty important. And then a few of the unique buffs, which, well, is pretty solid. As for the Rogue here, well, the Rogue didn't really get much. Some of the basic buffs, I don't think Invigorating Strike is still good enough because of the energy regeneration we have on the Barber. Poison Trap damage has been increased. That's actually a really big one out of all of these. And then Siphoning Strikes has been increased as well, but doesn't really change much. I've gone over the math on this. It does basically nothing. Druid here, biggest ones are the Spirit Gain on a lot of various basic skills. Woo, that is huge. Along with that, a lot of the companions got buffed, particularly the wolves and ravens. These got pretty big damage buffs, so they can kind of reinforce the companion druid. Sorcerer here, another probably the biggest update, and you can see it just keeps going on and on and on. There are two things that they really focused on: fire builds and chain lightning. Those two have gotten a lot of buffs. I think that the fireball buffs are a little bit of a meme. I don't think they're good enough because the fireball damage isn't quite good enough, but the chain lightning buffs do seem really interesting, especially greater chain lightning here. The destructive chain lightning can be interesting, but even more so than that, a lot of the aspects do reinforce that chain lightning build, and the Paragon nodes increasing are actually quite useful across the board, right? There are a few that specifically target like Crackling Energy or Fireball. The ones I'm more interested in are like the Territorial Rare Glyph, the Warding Rare Glyph. These things, I believe this one's like extra damage reduction when you're lower on mana, and that type of stuff is really, really good because just getting flat out damage reduction in a lot of different scenarios is super, super strong. Overall, I don't think that these buffs are going to make Sorcerer like, oh my goodness, they're a top 2, top 3 class. I think that it just kind of brings up some of the worst builds. And their best builds don't compete against the other best builds for other classes. So that's kind of where I'm at with the Sorcerer at the moment. Necromancer. Really, there's one change in here that I found to be incredibly interesting and incredibly important, and that's the aspect of exposed flesh. This used to only be applied to bone skills, but now it is able to be applied to anything in your arsenal, which is really, really nice. Outside of that, well, a little bit of bonuses to other essence regeneration, a little bit of extra damage, a little bit of interesting buff with Sever, and that type of stuff. That's kind of the TLDR of all the different classes. I'll leave a link to this down below if you want to read through them. I've already gone over them in a different video as well, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. But here we go. We get to see some of the numbers associated with a lot of the other updates, such as monster density. If you guys did not see, there's a screenshot in the previous campfire chat. I had a couple of colleagues of mine count the amount of density changes, or the little red dots that you see. It looks to be about a 40 to 50% increase in monster density, which is huge. So that's super exciting. On top of that, bosses above level 60 will have more HP. So you can see here, or I guess you could say, well, 60 and below will remain unchanged. Bosses at level 80 will have 50% more HP. At 100, 100%. At 120, 120%. And at 150 and above have 150% increased HP. Does this change much? I don't think so. Single turret DPS builds are generally good enough just to burst through even with 50% or more increased HP. A lot of the farming that I'm doing is around this level, so I'm most likely going to be fighting things that have literally more than double the HP, but that's still okay. What this also means, though, is that you're going to need a single target build in order to really speed up those times, and that's what I'm focusing on right now, which is pretty nice. And of course, they mentioned that you're going to be getting better rewards from them. Level 35 and higher boss monsters now have a 100% chance to drop a legendary item. This is absolutely amazing. Increased legendary item drop chance from level 6 to 14, and guaranteed a legendary item drop starting at 15. And Legion events are now more rewarding and guarantee a legendary drop at level 35 and above. Really, really nice changes here. This is all great. Okay, I even think this is pretty good. The density is amazing. These changes, the gameplay updates, are really good. The things that I'm not necessarily super excited about is actually the class balance, but you know, these more than make up. General changes here, we've made multiple improvements on how damage interacts with active barriers. Bonus damage or bonus effects that are applied on hit will now apply that same effect through barriers, which is really, really big. So for example, they gave an example of the exploit Paragon glyph. So now you're going to get vulnerable through barrier before you couldn't. That's super big. Varshan will now break through any bone wall segments he dashes through. The cost for refunding skill and Paragon points has been reduced, and by 40%. It scales though, so like at level 50 it's 12% reduced, etc. This is huge though. Love this. Super great change. Increased stack limit for elixirs. Additional stash tab. Okay. Restored the cast time for leave dungeon back to 3 seconds. Super amazing quality of life changes here. Really happy about that. Although the stash tab is kind of a meme because they gave us hearts and then they gave us a stash tab to basically store all of our hearts. So we're break even here, which is, you know, it's kind of a meme, but you know, these are good quality of life changes. So happy about that. Malignant Hearts, the spell breaking one, is going to give you damage reduction straight up when taking elemental damage. That's huge. The Temerity now will have the effect where barrier counting items, or the things that check barrier, now work with Temerity, and also some of the different affixes are changed. And then they fixed some bug fixes. So you could scroll through here and go through all the different bugs. There's a million of them. I kind of skimmed through it a little bit, but realistically, it's just a bunch of random bug fixes. So that's going to wrap up the patch notes. These are the official numbers. The things that I'm most excited about are monster density. This is a huge update, assuming they don't nerf XP on monsters, and I'll let you guys know when this patch goes live. The patch goes live on August 8th. August 8th is when the patch goes live. So that's going to wrap it up, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. There's some pretty good stuff in here, and honestly, this is probably one of the better patches, despite the class balance not being great. It's not bad, it's just not exciting, and I don't think really changes the landscape of the classes. But I'm curious to hear what you have to say, and I'll see you all for the next one.